Masato begins the exhausted story of his work, having worked endless overtime as an office clerk, arriving home exhausted every day to collapse on the couch, considering whether this exhaustive routine will define his next 40 years. Employed in his second year as an engineer at the site of a corporation where his heavy workload forced him to do unpaid overtime. Your workplace uses strict rules to control employees, and your relaxed boss only worsens the toxic environment as one by one the workers collapse from fatigue, and when they stop at the hospital, the boss gets angry and cuts off his wages while off work. Masato faces trial for not having a better job, although this was the only company that accepted him. In time, he adapts to difficulties, but your sense of purpose slowly fades away, though you find comfort taking care of your plants with a small sprinkler every day, a garden hobby that started in its first year in the company during its darkest moments, and now gives you a reason to continue. One night, completely exhausted after work, he watches a TV commercial showing happy farmers harvesting crops, whose joy inspires him to start a small garden at home to feel that same happiness. And now, to notice that one of your fruits is almost ripe, he observes a cherry tomato with unusual marks. Wondering about its flavor, concerned that it may be sick and that it may harm your other plants, he impulsively puts the strange tomato in his mouth and swallows, and he freezes, wondering why he did it. While your mind is blank, your consciousness disappears, and a panic wave arises when you think if it was toxic or had an instant effect. Before you can find out, everything gets dark, and when you open your eyes, as in a forest, not at home or in the hospital, seeing a floating status window on your right showing your full name, a new job, several statistics, a list of skills, and a note that you ate a reincarnation fruit. Your statistics, all in 5, seem unbalanced and strange, and your work changed from office clerk to farmer. What confuses you until you realize who was reincarnated because of that weird tomato, although initially think it may be a hallucination caused by the fruit. To see if it's real, he walks up to a tree and hits her head, but instead of waking up, you feel only pain, thinking it might be a casualty. Then he tries to hit his head on other trees repeatedly, and after feeling too much pain, you finally accept that this is reality. He really was reincarnated, but then to abruptly see a tiny little girl, the size of a fist, appearing smiling in front of you, making him fall to the ground scared, wondering if she's a doll, as she flies in her lively direction, saying she can feel the tree of reincarnation in him before he can answer. A robotic voice in his head states that he tamed a dryad, confirming that the little girl is a dryad and now his companion, and at that moment he suddenly feels refreshed, as if his energy was restored. Then, confused, it quickly checks your status window, surprised by what you see. All Masato's statistics had multiplied by 4, and he could feel a change in his body, which made him realize that this was not a dream or hallucination, but a true reincarnation. And at that moment the dryad called him the tree of reincarnation and asked him to follow it. But confused, he told her it was nothing like that. He had just eaten a tomato that looked bad. But before he could completely process what was happening, more dryads appeared, having heard the words of the first dryad and realizing the tree of reincarnation sent to him, gathering excitedly around you to greet you, while his systems were sending a flood of notifications confirming that he had conquered all the nearby dryads. When checking his status window, Masato was shocked to see his statistics displayed as exponents because they were so large, realizing that he had won exactly 112 dryads, each multiplying his top 5 statistics by 4, making the numbers completely out of control. And while he was trying to calculate in his head, he decided that it made no sense to explain mathematics, since neither he nor anyone else would probably understand. Trying to make sense of everything, Masato decided to treat the situation as a hallucination for now and looked out the status window for clues about other people who could help, noticing a flying ability that, with its incredible high intelligence statistics, I could throw it into space if I used it. His MP was only in 10, however, and using it all could kill him. So as I was looking for a safer approach, a dragon appeared in the sky, and when he felt danger, he quickly moved aside, avoiding a close attack that scattered the dryads, which seemed unharmed. Still, Masato could not escape the attack, trying to understand what was happening. Masato saw that the dragon was attacking him, but his chipped claws showed that he himself was injured more than he was during a sneak attack, which gave him the idea of using the dragon to fly to human civilization. First, he needed a way to negotiate, but when the dragon opened his mouth to gather fire for an attack, Masato wondered if he could counterattack, check his skills and find two barrier and spell breaker, who made him feel confident that he could stop the dragon's breath attack with his current powers. Without any other choice, Masato used the destroying spell on the dragon, who growled surprised, and a dryad translated her reaction of shock, unbelievable and amazed, saying that she could understand the dragon. Then he asked if she could translate it, until something unexpected happened. He acquired a new skill called automatic language translation. Curious with this new power, Masato heard the dragon complaining that a human had cancelled his breath attack, now able to clearly understand his words and realizing that he could speak to her directly, asking if she could hear you and understand you, which shocked Masato. Masato said, surprising the dragon, "I couldn't believe a human could speak his language." At that moment, Masato realized that translation skills worked on both sides, so he quickly told the dragon that he had a request, asking her to take him to heaven. Knowing that she was not skilled in negotiations, but hoping that her direct appeal, supported by her ability to communicate, would convince her, while she recognized that she could understand him. The dragon refused to meet a mere human, mocking that Masato's request was laughable, and preparing another fire-breathing attack, which he calmly neutralized with Destroy, calling her noble but urging her to help someone in need, though she ignored him completely. No room for negotiation, forcing Masato to seek a skill to face a dragon. He thought of using force for two reasons. First, he was defending himself, and even if he failed, the dragon had attacked first. Second, if ignored, the city where he was headed could be in danger. And while snooping through his skills, he found nanofire, but worried that his terrible power might incinerate the dragon. Masato's plan was to use force to face a dragon, but without harming the forest. Preferring softer spells, he had no choice at this critical moment, then launched nanofire without hesitation. He set off a pillar of fire that pierced the clouds, passing by the dragon, revealing the impacting force of the spell despite its simple name, leaving the dragon amazed, who claimed that Masato had used the mythical last atomic hell. Confused, Masato insisted he had only used nanofire, without enough MP for such a great spell, but the dragon called him dishonest, noting that he heard nanofire, but saw the scale of life and death. Masato's plan was to use nanofire, launched without enchantment, a technique Masato didn't even know. Realizing that the dragon confused his magic with an advanced spell, he saw his fear and chose to explore this misunderstanding, because she whinnied that such power of the nanofire could end the world, a striking contrast with his previous pride, now reduced to copulation. Scared of her magic, Masato watched the dragon's speech become overly polite and, despite her immense and intimidating form, she now seemed pathetic, but as long as she could fly, that was enough. So he asked again, as she ascended to heaven, and she agreed eagerly, willing to help. He warned her not to try too hard, especially on a long journey, but she despised her concern, boasting that she could cross the continent in half a day, relieving Masato by realizing his speed was equivalent to that of a passenger plane, and he rode on his back, clinging firmly as she threw herself into the air. While she was flying, he accidentally dislocated one of her scales, losing your footprint and falling to the ground, with a loud bang without the dragon noticing. When he looked at her, Masato saw that she was in a state of shock, without the dragon noticing until he heard the impact, which led her to apologize quickly for not realizing it before. Although Masato, thanks to his improved statistics, felt no pain, it was a lucky move in a bad situation, and the dragon apologized for the loose scale, while Masato asked her to stop bowing to avoid reaching the nearby drads. Although she was more curious about her own scale, she made sure she was well, because she was already loose and ready to fall. As an excuse, she offered him the scale, noting its high value in the human market, which Masato readily accepted, planning to sell it later. Then activated the storage ability, opening a portal that absorbed the scale, registering it as the Crimson Dragon scale and instructing it to say item box to access or recover stored items. Masato and the dragon finally left the forest, with him riding on his back as they flew through the sky, looking at the horizon and sighting farms in the extremities of the earth while scanning the area, feeling at that moment that perhaps could realize the peaceful life that had always dreamed of in this new world. For reasons he couldn't identify, that feeling was strong, and soon he saw a city, asking the dragon to hover above it, but she refused, saying that it was unwise, and suggested to land near the gates of the city. What they did, and Masato thanked her for the ride, to what she replied that she was happy to help and that she would help him whenever she needed. Listening to that left Masato glad, but he couldn't reach her again. Then a dryad offered to stay with the dragon, and when he asked if she could still communicate with the others from afar, she confirmed that she did, which satisfied him, so he allowed her to stay while the other dryads followed him, all agreeing happy. After landing, Masato and the dryads tested their communication, and the dragon confirmed that the message was received, and then he said had come home, advising Masato to contact her when he needed it, which he promised to call her if he needed help later. And while she was leaving, he turned to the next town, walking with hundreds of dryads after him. Meanwhile, the dragon came to her cave, and before entering, she asked the dryad to watch her try something, inspired by watching Masato's high flight starting to shine as their claws turned into human hands, and her body was morphed on a young girl. Then asked Dryad what his magic of human transformation looked like. Masato noticed the city guards panicking, packing their belongings after the dragon's departure, believing they would die, and perceiving their misunderstanding. He called to ask if he could enter the city, calming them down, but asked for his family crest, confusing him by asking what a coat of arms was. When he clarified he wasn't a nobleman, the guards were surprised, having assumed that he was one because of the way he spoke and how he repelled the dragon, thinking he could be a noble knight, which made Masato wonder if his manner of speech really sounded noble. So he realized it was probably his automatic language translation ability converting his polished Japanese into noble speech in this world. And by testing a casual tone, the guards agreed that now it sounded like an ordinary, which was weird, but better than being mistaken for noble. Then he assured that the dragon did not pose a major threat to Masato. But Masato was a noble knight, and he was a noble knight, explained that he frightened her with only nanofire, which led her to give him a ride, shocking the guards upon discovering that a dragon was used as transport and that a simple nanofire had frightened her, though they misinterpreted it again. And when Masato once again asked how to get into town, they handed him a ring, explaining that it was a magical tracking tool. He could remove it after registering for an identity in the guild, as it was mandatory for public order, and Masato, relating it to a piece, thanked them. But before entering, he asked if they could see the little winged dolls around him, just so the guards get confused and ask what he meant. The dryads smiled, and Masato realized they were invisible to others. Then he entered the city and went straight to the guild, as the guards had advised to obtain an identity, and as he walked the streets, he quickly found the Guild of Agriculture. Surprised to discover such a place immediately, especially for someone who once worked until exhaustion. Feeling that a peaceful life could be your destiny, entered, where a young friend greeted him with sympathy and asked how he could help, and when Masato asked if that was the place for an identity, she confirmed that yes, explaining that she would need his ring after issuing the card, and then asked if he was sure to join the Agriculture Guild. Masato confirmed her choice, believing she could benefit her new life, and she gave her a form to fill in her data while waiting for her identity, relieved he didn't need an address, and soon after he called his full name, delivering you the membership card to Agriculture Guild, and curiously asked which part of Shindo Masato was his last name. She deduced that Shindo was her surname and Masato her name. Then Masato, admitting that she came from a place with different naming conventions, asked if that was strange, and she chose to call him Masato, which, as a Japanese, made him a little shy with the casual use of his first name. Before she reminded him of the registration fee on the one other guild, saying she had to pay before she could pick up her ring and finish the card. Masato felt, promising to gather the funds soon. And then he asked where he could sell a fallen dragon scale, provoking an expression of surprise from the girl, who wondered how he got such a rare item, explaining that the Guild of Adventurers, functioning as a pawnshop, dealt with these materials. And when asked about the average monthly cost of living for a person, she replied that it was about 30 ithers, ensuring that a dragon scale would easily cover the registration fee. Assuming an ether was equivalent to a yen, Masato thought he could make enough money. But in the Guild of Adventurers, people were amazed to see the dragon scale needing to measure its dragon content for a test. Masato praised the piece, which had 5 grams per milliliter, a shocking result indicating that it came from an ancient dragon, because the draconic level corresponded to the dragon's classification, leaving Masato shocked to learn that the dramatic fire dragon Crimson was an ancient one. More focused on measuring, he commented that 5 grams per milliliter seemed little, but the employees corrected it high, pointing out that it was a huge amount, evaluating the balance at 81 million ethers. After what Masato returned to the guild, the receptionist, understanding her intention, asked him to remove the ring and confirmed that they offered land purchases, but warned him against buying farms quickly, explaining that the rent cost 4 ethers per acre per year, while buying 900 ethers per acre, advising him to start renting, because it was much more accessible. Masato liked the idea of renting land because it allowed him to experience different cultures in a large field without spending much. So he told the receptionist that he would choose the rental option, and when she asked if he was ready to pick a location, showing him a booklet of land available for the season, he selected tomatoes and soybeans, crops he had cultivated in primary school. He paid an initial amount of 220 ithers, thanked the girl for her help, but she asked if he was a wanderer, warning that running a farm alone would be difficult. Although Masato ensured that he had help, even if the dryads did not understand its meaning. And after organizing the tasks, Masato said he was ready to start farming the next day. In just half a day, his dream of living began to graduate, and the next morning he visited his rented farm, far from the city, but conveniently in the surroundings to call for help if necessary. When the dragon came, though he could not see her, until you use your enhanced vision skills, with her he spotted her, exchanged greetings, and she thanked me for the invisibility spell that allowed her to approach the city without being noticed, relieving Masato to see it worked. And when she asked if he could ride her to the farm, Masato took her back immediately. She flew over the plantation, casting a lighting spell to mark lines in the field before landing. So she asked the dragon to mix the soil at certain points using special material that they had prepared, and she agreed eagerly, using your storage magic, to release a cloud of black dust, and to smoke through the fields, which Masato had asked him the night before to create as ashes of wood, burning a distant prairie. Later confirmed by a dryad as the best grace she had ever seen. Curious, Masato asked why it was so good, and the dryad explained that the dragon dung was rich in nutrients, boosting the growth of cultures, an effect that Masato had not predicted. So he extended his arms to start making grooves, but when the dragon asked if the grooves were the heavy patterns in the human fields, offering to do so, he realized that his claws could help. She quickly traced the field with her claws, creating perfect grooves, and Masato, I was surprised that such a great creature was able to do such a delicate job. I wondered if she had a high skill of skill, feeling lucky to have met her in this world, so she asked her to create an enchantment to make grooves. Masato said she could do a couple of grooves before they stopped for lunch. After work in the field, the dragon suggested that they present themselves properly, tired of being called only dragon or its strain, and Masato realized that she was the flaming red dragon who stored his scales, which she confirmed, but admitted that it embarrassed her, wanting a better name. Masato thought it was strange that she introduced herself if she didn't like her own name. Then he suggested to play the name Doraemon, since dragon sounded similar, but she quickly refused, highlighting that she was a girl and wanted a cuter name. Surprising Masato, who did not know his gender, then began to mentally list girls' names. Finally, Masato suggested the name Himawari, and the face of the dragon lit up with relief and joy, finding his name unique, but he liked him, so he asked for his name, and Masato formally introduced himself, telling her to call him Masato, what she understood, and kept working in the fields, where, when planting, he suddenly realized that his dexterity stat was infinite. Curious if that meant he could cast seeds perfectly, he tested and, to his amazement, each seed fell evenly through the field, gaining praise from the Seds, who attributed a perfect note to its seed release, while Himawari, surprised, asked how he managed such a pitch, observing something strange in the seed trajectory. By inspecting more closely, she saw that each seed was exactly 2 centimeters deep. Unable to believe that Masato had such extraordinary skill, and although he felt a little guilty for making her feel inferior, he changed focus, asking everyone to start watering what the Dryads offered to make rain, explaining their ability. Then Masato entrusted them, and they began to pray. Soon a cloud formed over the field, and it began to rain, leading Masato to comment on his predictability and to wonder about other mysterious abilities that he could discover, so he used his cloud assessment ability, revealing that it was a cloud of rain blessed by the Sads, a unique cloud that appeared only when the Sads prayed. The water from this cloud enriched the soil and stimulated plant growth, surprising Masato by such a powerful agricultural ability to exist. Then he thanked Himawari and the Dryads, telling the dragon to go home, and Himawari agreed, saying to call her at any time, leaving Masato with only the harvest to do now that planting and irrigation were completed. Agriculture progressed well, and Masato felt that he could live peacefully there. But I missed Japanese food, even creating a simple dish, although this world had no key ingredients like soy sauce, vinegar, miso, mirin and rice. Then considered growing soybean to make soy sauce and miso. And then he realized he could make a dish right away. The next day, in the mountains, Masato quickly beat a loaded boar, knocking it down, and then scalded Himawari, reminding her that he had asked for a mountain with wild vegetables, not animals, but she, confused, noticed that he easily dealt with wild boars. Still, since they were there to collect ingredients for chawanmushi, a salty egg cream. He already had eggs, but he needed mountain vegetables and mushrooms for the plate, and that's why he asked Himawari to bring them there. And while thinking about the ingredients, it was asked if the boar could improve the meal, storing it in his storage ability, when something in a nearby tree caught his attention, and as he looked, identified Japanese wild parsley and oyster mushrooms. He felt he was on the right track, but then Himawari, excited, called him, saying that he had found tasty mushrooms, only for Masato to recognize them instantly as poisonous mushroom agaricus containing toxic substances such as abatinic acid and mucimur, leaving it momentarily speechless before warning it urgently about its danger. Himawari, indifferent, told Masato that she had been instructed to catch some mushrooms, but she did not, and also asked him not to worry, reminding him of his high vitality status, and noted that the mushrooms had a surprisingly strong flavor, making Masato hesitate, remembering that although the mushroom agaricus was toxic, its abatinic acid increased the umami, supposedly 10 times stronger than glutamic acid, that some mushroom fans sucked by taste before spitting. If your poison could be ignored, it would be an incredible ingredient. Then Masato decided to collect some, with Himawari agreeing that it was an intelligent plan, and Adraya intervened, saying that she had found something tasty, leading Masato to a citrus fruit of the yuzu family with a strong aroma, perfect as cover for chawanmushi. Having gathered everything he needed, he told Himawari that they would return, and she showed interest in trying out her dish, which Masato thought was a great idea. But when they returned to the city, they forgot her invisibility spell, causing panic among the guards, and after calming the chaos, Masato has returned to the preparation of the food, with the ingredients arranged, processed wild boar meat, oyster mushrooms, a seasoning created with skill, market eggs, citrus and wild parsley for chawanmushi. Beat the eggs, made a triple broth, and used alchemy to turn non-edible parts of the boar into spice, dissolving it into water for broth. Mixed the broth with the eggs in a bowl, softening the texture by eliminating bubbles on the surface. Then put the meat and mushrooms in a cup, pouring the egg mixture up to 80% of it, and since there were no vaporizers here, he used a skillet, added water, put the cups in and heated them. Without foil, he used barrier magic instead, and after 10 minutes, removed the heat, tilting the cups to check if the liquid was transparent, signaling that the dish was ready. Then put a slice of citrus on the edge of each cup, completing the chawanmushi, before going out to the balcony to tell Himawari that he was ready, though he wondered how she would eat such a small portion. Given its size, it seemed complicated, but Himawari asked him to wait, so she shone brightly, turning into a little human girl using her magic, landing gently on the balcony, and asking Masato how his human form was, leaving him amazed but relieved they could now share the meal. Himawari seemed proud, and they sat at the table where Masato served the dish, both thanking before eating, although he had kept her from biting, instructing her to squeeze the citrus over first to enhance the taste. What they did before they proved it. The dish was delicious, with Masato praising the perfect texture given by parsley and mushrooms, while Himawari enjoyed the soft and rich taste, and Masato, with his sleazy eyes, realized that that was exactly the taste he desired. But when he took a bite of a mushroom, he froze, reached by an unprecedented umami intensity. You finally understand why mushroom enthusiasts are looking for toxic varieties, then quickly use detox magic to neutralize the poison. Thank you for the magic to allow you to enjoy the taste safely in this world. And realizing that the poison didn't affect him anyway, he and Himawari continued to eat, happily speaking for the rest of the meal. After the meal, Himawari praised Masato's culinary skills, and when he asked if she wanted more, she answered promptly that yes, then asked if he could save a portion for later, which would cheer her up, so Masato promised to do so next time. And after saying goodbye to her, she realized that, with a little creativity, I could enjoy the food even more in this world. The next day, with free time, Masato went shopping and spotted steaks he could use later. But his high price made him think that making their own from the products of their field would save money. And just then Carol from the Guild of Agriculture showed up. He thanked her for her previous help and asked why she was there, to which Carol replied that she was shopping for her domestic garden, because it was Guild's day off, offering to guide him around the store as Guild employee concerned about the success of his clients, and Masato accepted with pleasure, pleasing Carol. Masato felt that this world had many surprises and mysteries to explore, and Carol showed him magical tools, including a seed invasion barrier to block weeds and a sprinkler's tool for easy irrigation. But he told him that the rain of Dryad's blessing was enough, claiming that he could control rain clouds without causing damage to the soil of the plants. However, he was not satisfied with the results of the experiment, since the others could not see the Dryads. In need of an explanation, he was amazed by Carol's ability from another world. And then he noticed a family can of liquid fertilizer, intrigued by its existence in a non-industrialized city, where ammonia production for fertilizer should not exist, wondering how it was made. Carol, listening to the conversation, explained that liquid fertilizers were dungeon drops, surprising Masato with a game concept, and added that growth stimulants, 5 days per hectare, were used. But when Masato showed disappointment, she asked what was wrong. He admitted that he had expected an instant harvest effect, as in the games, and when Carol asked for clarifications, he explained, but she observed that stimulants were used only during the harvest season, and Masato thought that the cost exceeded the small benefit, with Carol adding that only rich farmers could profit from them. As Masato had a dragon scale, she suggested that he himself could collect items from the dungeon, arousing an idea, and later, in the dungeon, he improved a sword with sharpness and durability bonuses, knowing that their 10 EPs limited their physical attacks. but wondering how much effort would be needed to bring together growth promoters. Just then, Himawari arrived, asking why he had brought her to a dungeon, thinking that she could handle herself, but Masato said that she would appreciate it if she hunted anything she could find to keep him safe, also asking her to join as a reference, which hurt her feelings, since she thought he saw her differently. His presence as a dragon frightened the monsters, making things easier for Masato, who then said they would explore deeper if no monster appeared, a plan that Himawari could not escape, and he opened the status window, activating a skill, thinking that an elevator in the dungeon would be useful, making the system confirm the construction as the dungeon began to tremble. Masato and Himawari saw something emerging from the ground, revealing an elevator with wires connected to the ceiling. And when his door opened, Masato's master-level architecture skill had somehow worked, leaving Himawari amazed and confused, while Masato quietly commented that he had built an elevator, leading her to murmur that he was altering the dungeon structure with excessive ease, and they went down in the elevator until they found enemies. On the 8th floor, a giant bear creature blocked their way, and when Masato asked if she was stronger than him, Himawari said no, noting that he had a 1 in 100 chance of beating her while she was resting. Then Masato quickly aimed at her neck, killing her instantly, and a letter fell from her. Himawari, confused, asked what happened and what Masato did, to which he replied that he just reached his weak spot, then examined the letter, a wyvern invocation letter for transport with great storage magic, and asked if only bears would let her go. Himawari clarified that monsters of the same level could release similar items, and while Masato wondered if she was referring to the crocodile monster that appeared, she couldn't answer because he had already moved, precisely cutting the crocodile's neck, leading her to complain about her speed, and an item fell, a small vinyl house ideal for plants, and a small vinyl house ideal for plants. Masato, surprised by his usefulness, asked if he could grow alcaldica mushrooms, suspecting they were mushrooms, and Himawari explained that they cured the White Wizard's disease, one of the 5 deadly epidemics, revealing that his mother had this disease and there were only 300 years left to live, destroying his hope. She added that growing mushrooms alcaldica could save her mother, encouraging Masato with cultivation, although still needed a growth accelerator, and asked if the mushrooms had spores, to which Himawari replied that they were common but difficult to cultivate, and Masato, mentioning the botulinum bacteria, said it was the most lethal poison on Earth. They continued, and even a fast mime monster could not overcome Masato, who released a voicemail that copied dungeon items, with Himawari noting that all the monsters on the floor had been defeated, but without the growth accelerator. They went deeper to the dangers of the 80th floor. Soon they faced a serpent monster, which was quickly transformed into sashimi, dropping something familiar that shocked Masato, a growth accelerator that could accelerate 3 months of growth and adjust periods by dilution, unlike the store version allowing instant harvests in the field. So Himawari spotted a glass gecko, whose body was made of glass, staring from the ceiling, and when Masato asked about her powers, she explained that she exchanged explosive fragments of glass skin, making him think of a trap, for fighting a glass creature with his sword worried him. But with the lizard already aware of them, Masato had to fight, easily cutting it into pieces that fell, relieving him, and strangely enough, Himawari boasted of the sharpness and strength of his sword, while the creature dropped a glass shoe, Clyneo de Cinderella, which could permanently transform the person who wore it into a beautiful woman. Masato noted that the glass shoe would turn a man into a beautiful woman, not a handsome man, considering him useless and deciding to come home. But Himawari asked if they would explore more, since it would seem a waste to leave, and Masato clarified that he was not serious about adventures, and they separated outside the dungeon. Himawari asked him to contact her when he used the vinyl house, and later, in the city, Masato decided to sell unused items like glass shoe, visiting the Guild of Adventurers, where the same employee who took care of his dragon scale recognized him, examining the shoe and suggesting that it could be Cinderella's legendary momentary glow. She went away to evaluate him, and soon Masato heard screams coming from behind, with the team returning to confirm that it was a first-line version of the item, able to influence noble and real relationships. Asking where he had found it, he said it came from the 81st floor of the dungeon, and when she pressed for more details, he used a magic item to detect lies, checking their veracity, surprising Masato, who didn't expect her to doubt him. Just when a man with an eye patch appeared, having heard of the 81st floor, asking whether Masato was the one who had returned from the dungeon and knew of a new and strange structure there. Masato asked if they were referring to the elevator, explained that it built it because moving between the floors was very inconvenient, shocking them with their casual reasoning, though they found their actions outrageous, and when Masato pondered whether to remove it, the guild proposed to open it to the public, offering an annual license of 3 million ether, and although Masato accepted them to use it, wondered if the guild could pay for it, asking them to transfer the fee and payment of the glass shoe via the agricultural guild, sighing unbelief with the way things had unfolded. With his wealth growing, he went shopping, checking your status window, now more balanced with 25.5 PEV and 4.5 NP. Relieved that your DAS increased, making sure you wouldn't run out of magic while you were pharma. Later, in the field, he pondered how to use the growth accelerator, and the dryads offered to mix it properly, instructing him to dump it in the rain clouds, which, to his surprise, had tickets, although he dumped him without questioning why. The filled clouds hovered over the fields, raining the booster, and the shoots grew at an impressive rate, like an accelerated video, but the plants grew so much that they needed support. Then Masato used gravity manipulation to support them, without support pillars. The plants matured, producing almost mature tomatoes, soy and edamame, impressing Masato, who decided to harvest half the harvest, recruiting the help of dryads, who promptly collaborated, while he was buying support pillars for the tomatoes, designating some dryads to sustain the plants while installing them. The dryads worked hard to help Masato, since the growth enhancer needed 4 days to recharge, then suggested to wait before harvesting the remaining plants, and 4 days later, they collected all the tomatoes and soy. Returning to your apartment where Masato checked your box of items, finding 20 tons of tomatoes, Masato was able to harvest all the tomatoes, 890, 2 kilos of edamame and 984 kilos of soy. Taking advantage of the moment, he used his assessment skills to examine them, and was shocked by discovering that tomatoes were eternal tomatoes, containing a potent anti-aging ingredient that stopped aging with only 100 grams a week and had perfect flavor, while the so-called black bean divine eye improved vision twice and granted telescope ability with 100 grams a week. Like tomatoes, they had first-line flavor, leaving Masato in a state of ecstasy,